My name is Kimberly. I write the blog Keep the Tail Wagging. And for the first few seconds, whenever I do a live, I just speak randomly at the camera because I have to think about the people who come and look at this later. So I write about dogs. My blog is Keep the Tail Wagging. I think I already said that. And I started it in December 2011. I originally started it to talk about raising litter mates, which cracks me the hell up because I am not a dog trainer or a behaviorist. So I don't know why I thought all of a sudden I was an expert when it comes to raising litter mates. I just had a set of litter mates. They were doing great. I've had 2 sets of litter mates in our home. We've never had any problems with litter mate syndrome, anything like that. So that's why I started the blog. A few years later, dealing with one dog that had a lot of health issues, I switched my dogs over to a raw food diet and saw the magic that brought to our home. And by that, I mean that it cured most of my dog's health issues. And I started writing about it. So that brings us today. So we have 13 people watching. Thank you guys for joining me. So I'm pretty excited. So last week I was talking about like how to thaw food, if you could refreeze food, things like that. And when I was going through the questions for the live, I got 2 questions. And before I started this, I remembered both of them, but right now I only remember one. And the question that I got was, should you use glass when you're freezing food, or should you use plastic when you're freezing food? And so I'm going to say this, and this is going to be very unpopular. I say go with what you can afford. I know that we live in a world where people are really proud and they bang their chest over the fact that they don't use things from China, or they only, they don't use plastic, they only use glass. But the simple fact of the matter is it's not convenient for everyone to live a life that way. I think if you are like avoiding all plastic or all single-use plastic, if you have everything made in the USA, even better, if everything in your home is local to you, that's awesome. But that's just not the reality for a lot of people, myself included. So I do use glass jars. I usually use those for bone broth and for veggie mixes. Otherwise, I'm not putting my raw dog food in glass jars. That's just, for me, would be insane. I'm also not buying a bunch of glassware to freeze food in. And the reason why is because that stuff is expensive. And if I'm going to buy glassware that is going to stand up to being frozen and refrozen over and over and over again, I'm going to have to get a good quality product. And it's just not in my budget. Whereas when it comes to plastic, it's a lot more durable and lasts a lot longer, and you can get it for a really inexpensive price. So I will use the plastic forever. I don't microwave. I just put it in the freezer. And because, I feed raw, so I'm not feeding home cooked, so no need to microwave. But anyway, and then of course with my dog's dishes, I use stainless steel bowls for my dogs to feed them out of. I know that there are people who have attitude about that. I honestly have reached a point where I just don't care. And then of course I have ceramic dishes that I like to use. It's kind of like a pasta dish, so it's a little flatter. And I like those as well. Hey, Tony. And the reason why is because I like to be able to spread out the food so that it doesn't become overwhelming to the scent. And I started doing this when Sydney was still with us because she would get so overwhelmed that it would make her nauseous. But when I started using a pasta bowl and separating out the food so she can actually take the time and figure out what she wants to eat, she was so much happier. And since I was doing it for her, I just did it for everyone. So I do use ceramic dishes. There are people who have attitude about ceramic because if it was made in China, then it might have lead in it. I don't know. And yeah, the dishes were made in China. I flipped them over when I was at the store and saw, but so was every other dish on the shelves at the store. So I'm not the best person to ask. If you want to be completely and utterly clean because you just live 100% clean lifestyle, whatever clean living means for you, I think that that's what you should go for. But there are no hard and fast rules of you should only do it this way or you should only do it this way when it comes to freezing our dog's food. So I actually went and picked up tons of plasticware. I like the Rubbermaid brand on Black Friday sales and then at like dollar stores. And that's what I use. So I can't remember the other question, but if you guys have questions about freezing food, feel free to pop in. The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was why my dog is going through chemotherapy. So when I announced that, I found a lump in my dog's neck, we're going to go have it checked. I got, which is to be expected with social media, a lot of, hey, Patricia, a lot of unsolicited advice, people who are going to tell me what I should do with my dog. Of course, none of these people are veterinarians. None of these people have any type of medical experience. It's just personal opinions being shared, which is fine if you're open for it. So whenever I'm going through something serious with my animals, I really don't count on social media to give me good advice on what I need to do with my dogs. These are strangers, ultimately. We may get along and have fun conversations back and forth on social media, but we're all still strangers. And when it comes to animal health, we're uneducated strangers. So I'm not going to take the advice of a stranger. I love listening to people who have been through the same thing. So I did jump on the phone with a few people who had dogs with lymphoma just to have a better understanding of what the process is, what you can expect. Because when Sydney had hemangio, I was really caught off guard. And man, a dog with cancer is no joke. It's really stressful. So I have spoken to those people, and I appreciate those conversations. Thank you all who took the time to chat with me. But ultimately, I'm going to work with my veterinarian and my oncologist on my dog's health. I'm not going to lean on strangers on social media. So no offense, but I think that makes good sense for everyone. So when I was talking about my dog's cancer, I got one really wonderful, nice, respectful person who sent me a message saying, hey, I'm surprised that you chose to go the route of chemo. It's not something that she would have chose, but she was open to understanding why I went that route because, like me, she understood. She doesn't know everything, and so maybe there's something she needed to learn. And so I shared with her why I decided to go chemo. Another person actually went on and just begged me not to do chemo and told me, how could you put all those poisons in your dog's body? And I got a few of those type of messages. And I'm going to just tell you upfront, as a person who has a dog with cancer, those type of messages are about as useful and appreciated as like a mosquito bite on your nipple. It's not something you just want to experience. It's not going to be enjoyable. It's not going to be educational. It's not going to be this great memory that you think back on fondly. It's just going to be a pain in the butt. So although I totally respect that people have passionate feelings about different things, this world in which we all feel that we need to share our passionate opinions, as I'm kind of doing right now, well, I think that sometimes we just need to shut the hell up. And, or like I've done, learn to just block those type of thoughts and just don't even think about those people. So anyway, why I decided to go chemo. There are a lot of people out there. I'm getting emails all the time from people who are coming home with a cancer diagnosis, and it's heartbreaking. My dog is raw fed. Scout has been raw fed since he was 6 weeks old. He is a very healthy dog. And the reason why I decided to go the chemo route is because lymphoma is very responsive to chemo. Yes, I could have just not done chemo. I could have kept him on prednisone, which, by the way, is a pain in the butt. And for anyone who understands what I'm talking about, damn, prednisone is awful. This is a steroid, and it makes your dog super hungry, super thirsty. And you're looking at your dog that has a cancer diagnosis. Johan's home. And you don't want your dog to starve, but they're looking at you like, lady, I'm starving. And you can end up overfeeding your dog. Scout gained 4 pounds while the few weeks that he was on prednisone. He's now losing it. But it was a pain in the butt. I could have just stuck with prednisone and then just totally hit his body with antioxidants like crazy. The problem with that plan is I don't know how many antioxidants are in the different various foods and what I'm supposed to hit him with. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I mean, yes, I could ask around, but no, my dog is young. He's 7 years old. He's active and happy and strong. And I'm not going to risk his health and his future because I have some misguided understanding of what chemo is and what it does. So chemos with dogs don't have the symptoms that humans have. So Scout didn't lose his hair. he had a little bit of diarrhea. He had some vomiting, but it wasn't the chemo, it was the prednisone, because he would drink so fast that he would just vomit up the water. That was it. And I think he might have vomited up food. Yeah, I think he's done that twice since February, since he's been on chemo. But for the most part, I work with his oncologist and we talk about what were his symptoms, what is he going through, and we adjust the medication as is. Lymphoma is very aggressive. So for me to try and treat lymphoma, me, a person who doesn't know what the hell I'm doing, to try and tackle lymphoma, I just didn't feel comfortable doing it. So I went with the CHOP protocol. He went into remission in less than a month. So 3 weeks in, he was basically in remission, which is huge and a surprise for everyone. And I'm absolutely thankful for it. And he's still doing great. He's now reached a point where we're now going to be going through every other week for chemo treatments. And I think we'll be done July, August. But as long as he stays in remission, we're good to go. I'm also combining chemo with Answers pet food. I took him off of my raw food and put him on Answers because Answers does the fermentation, and the fermentation kind of tackles that bacteria fear that veterinarians have. And my thought was that this is my compromise because the oncologist wanted me to take him off of raw. That ain't happening. She wasn't like, oh, feed him kibble. No, she wanted me to cook for him. I do cook for him as part of his diet, but he's also eating Answers pet food and doing really great on that. The other cool thing about Answers is because it's a little higher in calories, the amount that you feed your dogs is a lot less. So I usually feed him about 13 to 14 ounces per meal. When I'm feeding him my food with Answers is 8 to 9 ounces per meal. So almost half of the amount. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, what else is there? Or that's actually more than half the amount. But anyway, and then I'm also adding supplements that support and protect his healthy cells, supplements that kill cancer cells, supplements that encourage cancer or cell death in cancer cells, which is pretty much the same as kill cancer cells. And I'm also giving him CBD oil from CBD Dog Health. He gets that 3 times a day, every day. And I use essential oils from Animalio to just help keep his system strong and everything. And he's doing great. So yeah, I am a proponent of chemo, but what I'm mostly a proponent of is working with your veterinarian and oncologist. So like I said at the top, I think it's awesome that people are talking to each other and getting sort of like the lay of the land. It's the same thing as when I first started feeding raw. It was helpful to talk to other raw feeders to get a better understanding of where I could get the food, what I needed to worry about, what I could expect with my dogs, et cetera, and so forth. But that wasn't going to be my only source of information. I also worked with a holistic veterinarian on getting my dog's diet right. And I worked with a nutritionist at the time too, just to have a better understanding of what I needed to do. Now with cancer, I'm working with my veterinarian and my oncologist. And because of that, Scout is killing it. So that is why I chose to go do the chemo route. I just wanted to make sure that my dog had the best chance of surviving. It's not to say that if I would have chosen to go all natural, he wouldn't have survived. But I do know that if I had chosen that route and he did not survive, I would never have forgiven myself. I just don't, for me, no judgment on other people, but for me, I don't want to play games with my dog's life. And so I'm going to just look at you guys and see, hey, what's up?
What happened here?
Oh, that's just them coming in the house. I have to mop the floors. Can you mow? Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm doing a live. I'm a horrible host. Dolly says, yeah, sure. How easy was it to choose to stick to raw throughout treatment, even though the vet recommended against it? It was crazy easy because I went through to answer. So I don't know if you posted this question before or after I said I switched him to Answers. I just gave him Answers. He still has raw eggs here and there. He has raw duck feet. So he's not completely on Answers. I just try to give him mostly Answers things. And that's just so that I can say to the vet, see, he's doing fine. I just don't feel comfortable putting him on anything else. I do, like I said, I do cook probably once a month because the CHOP protocol is 4 different cancer medications. And the first, they get progressively stronger through the 4 periods. Like you do the 4, you have a day off where it's just blood work to check how they're doing, and then you start it again, then you start it again. So we're now, I think we're about to start our third round of the chemotherapy. And so the fourth medicine is a long infusion. So it's basically an IV, and he has to sit still for like 30, 40 minutes. And that one is the hardest on his system. So that week, and also when they do his blood test, they just see where his white blood cells are. So the white blood cells, if it's low, that means his immune system is struggling. And they will rebuild over time. And especially now that we're going to every other week, they have 2 weeks to get strong again. But during that time, after that fourth medication, I just like to cook for him, because to me, honestly, it makes me feel better. I know it's still a healthy diet because I do the exact same thing I do with raw. It's just that instead of having raw meat, everything is going in the pressure cooker. I cook it for an hour, and then I mix it with Dr. Harvey's Paradigm, and boom, we got food. But it was very easy for me to stick to raw. I mean, that was a no-brainer. I've been feeding raw for so long, and I've seen the benefits. I just honestly couldn't imagine feeding anything else. And Judy says, good for you and your choices. We can all learn from other choices and decisions, pro and cons. Thanks for sharing your experience. Thanks for being here, Judy. And thank you, Patricia. He's doing really good. And thank you, Michelle. But yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely blown away. And so I just want to wrap this up and say that if you have a dog with a cancer diagnosis, one thing that is important is that this will shake you. I mean, I remember when I found out that, Sydney had cancer, and she was not doing good. And I knew she wasn't doing good. So it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I think deep down, I knew that I was about to say goodbye to my girl. And I did. With Scout, it was a surprise to find a lump, but he's 7 years old. And that's when, in my experience, you start seeing the fatty tumors. I knew by the feel of it that it was not a fatty tumor. That was easy for me to figure out. I just didn't know what it was. And I don't believe in trying to diagnose via social media, because you end up regretting that more than you appreciate it, because either people will try and convince you that it's not a big deal, and there's a risk that you won't take it as seriously, and it turns out it is a big deal. Or there are people who want to tell you every absolutely dark and ugly horror story that they went through with their dog, and that doesn't help either. So I find that it's just best to call your vet and get an opinion from an oncologist. I did do a fine needle aspirate. That was another thing that people were like, don't ever do a fine needle aspirate. I think half the people that tell you not to do that, I don't even think they understand why they're telling you not to do it. As I understand it, a fine needle aspirate may not be definitive. So you can have a fine needle aspirate done, but depending upon where they're pulling the cells, they kind of miss the cancer cells and it comes back clean. And you're like, oh, well, my dog's okay, when your dog isn't okay. So I'm grateful that, we still got lucky with our diagnosis, and we were able to get in there and treat him fast because we caught it so early. But I forgot what, I'm just rambling at this point. I just basically want to say, be careful of diagnosing via social media. It's not the best way to go. And I have never regretted calling my vet, even if it's the most craziest, insane thing that I'm freaking out about. I'd rather call my vet and have my vet say, no, don't worry about it, than not call my vet and then find out, like with Sydney, even though we did take her to the vet, and hemangio in her case was just really sneaky. It would disappear every time I took her to the vet, like the signs of it. So they couldn't find anything with her until it was like everywhere. So, but I'm just saying, follow your gut, go to the vet, talk to your vet, and just be careful about who you talk to and listen to on social media, because you do not want to fail to act because you got a false sense of security. And if you're like me, then you will always regret that decision. Whereas, man, going into the vet and having them just tell me my dog is okay. I had that happen with Rodrigo, where I was wondering if he would get hemangio because Sydney was his sister. And they did all the tests and he was fine. And now I feel good. And it's like one less thing that I have to worry about at the moment. So I hope that was helpful. And if you guys have any questions for me, please feel free, leave them in the comments. You can shoot me a message through my blog, keepthetailwagging.com. And while I have you, My birthday is in a few days. Thank you for birthday wishes. I want to say I am raising money for a local rescue called Save a Mutt. You can find them on Facebook at saveamut.org also. But if you can go through the fundraisers, I have been sharing it both on my Facebook page and on my personal page, and donate. Every little bit counts. This is an amazing organization that pulls pregnant dogs from high kill shelters, brings them up to Washington, make sure the mom gets all the medical care and love that she needs, make sure the puppies are born safely and taken care of. We have a really amazing foster family network and community. And all of these dogs end up in, great homes. Medical costs are covered. We're also taking in, I'm actually on the board of directors of this organization. We also take in injured dogs, making sure that they get the medical care they need and they end up in a family. We are making sure dogs are socialized, that we're testing out their training, seeing, what their triggers are. So making sure that if a dog is not good with cats, that they don't end up in a home with cats. If a dog isn't good with children, they don't end up in a home with children. If a dog would prefer to be a solo dog, then it doesn't end up in a home with 5 dogs, and so on and so forth. But I'm just so proud of everyone that is involved in this organization and the impacts that they are making and the work that they're doing to try and ban puppy mills in our state. And I'm just asking if people can take the time, head over to Facebook. You can find it again on my Facebook page or on my personal profile. It should be easier to find on my personal profile because I hardly post any there anymore. And donate some money to help this amazing group. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a fantastic Thursday. Thanks, Patricia.